You know, we like to highlight Idaho's moments in history here on the 2-8, some of which are pretty obvious, like when we became a territory, when we became a state, the time we dropped beavers out of airplanes, and some of our lesser-known moments, like Boise's Spanish Village, or the time a Grangeville family mailed a little girl to her grandmother. One of those moments your fourth grade teacher may have skipped over in your state history curriculum was when, well, Boise entered into the modern age of computer technology. Modern age for that age, I should say. It was significant for several reasons, but probably more significant for one man with firsthand experience with the machine. Most people these days walk around with a personal computer in their purse or in their pocket or in their hand. But most people walking around downtown Boise these days probably wouldn't notice this sign saluting those first days.
The first computers in Boise City.
On the corner of 6th and Main, there's a plaque put there by Dr. Emerson Maxon.
I'd say that.
A member
Yes.
of the Association of Information Technology Professionals.
We have to remember something about us, and so we said, let's do a plaque.
It's about considering something of significance. It was
66 years ago.
66 years ago.
Yeah.
That's because 67 years ago, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956.
The most talked about phase of the act is the interstate highway system, a 41,000-mile network of our most important roads.
Considered one of the greatest public works projects in our nation's history.
And they needed computing to do the construction for the interstate highway system.
So, in this building, what used to house the Idaho Statesman, and in 1957 was home to the state's highway department, they brought in Boise's very first computer. That way, the engineers could focus on engineering instead of
Calculating, exactly.
the UNIVAC 120.
Universal, integrated, variable access computer.
And it was used to figure out how much dirt to take away or put in to make roads.
Add, subtract, multiply, and divide, that was the big deal.
It just couldn't work with big numbers. So 438 digits, like actual digits.
Digits.
That's it, 438.
That's it.
And it took a big old machine to do that.
It took a big machine to do that. And so you see the size of the man, that's probably about a 6x6 space.
That's the thing. Many people may not see the size of the man pictured on the plaque because they may not even notice the plaque.
There it is.
But one man
So it was in this building here?
This building,
certainly does.
this is the one.
Lynn Sherman is seeing this sign for the very first time. A surprisingly emotional moment.
Remington Rand UNIVAC.
You see, a while back,
3,200 pounds.
Thing was a monster.
It was a monster.
Lynn looked up the UNIVAC 120 on the internet.
And your goal was to find it and come here, and here we are.
At that point, it was find this plaque.
Here we are.
We made it to Boise. We found it.
It's everything I hoped for.
He's glad we could.
You may be wondering
Bucket list.
why an 85-year-old man
Yep.
might get so sentimental about a sign.
This was the very first time I ever touched a computer.
Back in January of 1960, a recent graduate of Boise Junior College, Lynn applied for a job with Idaho's Department of Highways. He was hired on the spot.
My job was to do highway design work, which I'd been doing manually for the highway department.
During those years, they were building the interstate between Oregon and Utah, and Lynn became the lone engineer working with the UNIVAC 120.
I think it took me 3 panels worth of programming to do the complete earthwork calculations that we had been doing by hand. I designed the cards, I built the patch panel, no manuals, there was no training, and I had to decipher by guess as to what the hieroglyphics meant on the patch panel.
To do that, Lynn spent a lot of time in the basement of this building.
I was probably here 20 hours a day sometimes.
Really?
Yep. I mean, I just love this place.
And it's what brought Lynn back to Boise for the first time since 1975.
I mean, I had to. I think about it so much. Because it's where all of this started. I had no clue what to do after college. There was something that I needed, and I found it here. And this place has haunted me. Because it was where I met computers for the first time. And it's set the course of my life.
So now you can see why one man
I've been a computer nerd ever since I was January 2nd in this building.
can be so sentimental about one sign.
This is just the beginning.
What a beginning it was. His job with Idaho's Department of Highways and working with the UNIVAC 120 led him to Oregon State University, where Lynn says he helped start their computer science center. It also led him to a 15-year career at Weyerhaeuser and another 20 years as a consultant with Boeing, where he is still gainfully employed. And he brought his work home with him in the form of some of the first personal computers and laptops the world's ever known, which rubbed off on his two sons, Brian and Carl, who were there with him on this trip to Boise, who also went on to work for Microsoft and IBM, respectively. So yeah, that plaque, that building, that 3,200-pound computer, even though they only worked on it and worked there for a short time, it all made quite the impact for one man who wasn't sure what he was going to do after Boise Junior College.